Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Sporting Fan Podcast. Today I'm going to speak about something that's very topical at the moment, simply because of, what's been happening and play speaking about it in the media, and that's sponsorship in sport. And it comes up every few years, this topic, in relation to who should sponsor clubs or organisations in general, and it's quite a complex and interesting topic to speak about because there's just so many different dynamics to this that are just so makes it an interesting thing to think about. And a lot of people will probably just go, oh yeah, it's obviously two companies coming together, putting logos on jerseys or shorts or what have you. But it's a little bit more than that. It's a lot, obviously a lot deeper than that. Simply because you have so many things that can go either right or wrong with sponsorship depending on the client, the current environment, and that could be on both parts. And there's a lot of risk on when it comes to this, because with sponsorship, for example, a classic example, is the Roosters in 2009. They were, I'm just using my team as an example. They finished last. They had magnitude of off-field problems. A lot of blokes were getting in trouble and what have you, and then getting with mainly alcohol. Getting drunk, acting like idiots, and then Samsung, who had been a major sponsor of the Roosters for a few years at that point, decided to drop the Roosters, and they said, oh, this is damaging our brand, which is kind of ironic with, a few years later, they had their own problems with their phones, blowing up, and that would have been a very interesting how that would have actually ended up working, because you could have said if they stayed on with the Roosters after that, with the Roosters have wanted to keep Samsung on as a sponsorship, with, they're having all their problems with their phones, and if the Roosters would have had, shown the same loyalty to Samsung, saying, well, we don't want to be seen with a, bad product, this rubs off on us, this could end up damaging our brand, we don't want anything to do with you. So it would have been actually a very interesting dynamic to look at. And that actually happened with another case in the NRL with the Cronulla Sharks and Ashley Madison. For those that don't know Ashley Madison, basically it's a dating app that encourages cheating on your partner. That's the best way to put it. A very short description, but that basically is all you need to know. That it's essentially a dating app directed at couples who are unhappy in their relationship and they want to cheat on their partner. And they offered to, and this is during the whole, when Cronulla had the whole ASADA problems and all the drug problems around that 2013, 2014 mark. And Ashley Madison came in and said, we'll offer you an $11 million sponsorship over 10 years. So they said, we'll pay off your $1 million, the NRL, I'm not sure if it was the NRL or some other organisation, fined Cronulla $1 million. So Ashley Madison said, we'll pay the $1 million fine, and then we'll give you $1 million a year for naming rights of the stadium that they play at, because of course Cronulla is the only team in the NRL that actually own their own ground. So they said, oh, we'll give you $1 million a year for naming rights, and then Cronulla said, this goes against the morals. We said, and they just said no, that we can't have you as a sponsor, and as much as at the time Cronulla was struggling, they said, yeah, we're struggling, but we can't have you as a sponsor. So it is quite an interesting dynamic, that one where even with the struggling times, the teams can still say, if everything doesn't align, like the values don't align, they don't always come together. And in this current week, it just shows the Cricket Australia they've been sponsored by Alinta Energy for a couple of years now, and basically, and so they had a lot of the international players, the Australian players like Nathan Lyon, Pat Cummins, Mitchell Starc, appear in their ads, and in the Alinta Energy ads, and then eventually, but Pat Cummins said that he's not going to appear in ads because he's a climate activist, and said Alinta Energy isn't doing enough to invest in renewable energy, reduce the carbon emissions, and reduce, just basically be more green essentially, and then Alinta Energy parted ways with Cricket Australia. That's going to cost Cricket Australia $40 million, and the other one is Netball Australia. They a lot of the players basically were bitching and complaining about Gina Reinhart's mining company sponsoring them, and basically that's cost them $15 million in sponsorship. The first one I'll speak about is obviously the Cricket Australia one. With that, it just seems like a bit of a odd one to really pick a fight with, because majority of energy companies, obviously some are doing more than others, but everyone needs energy. And virtually every energy company is using coal. I can't think of any energy company that doesn't use coal, especially here in Australia. So they all rely on coal to a certain extent, and coal's predominant. And again, this is not this is not me saying justifying it, or me saying I believe in coal. I do believe that Australia does, Australia and a lot of other countries like China, the US, and a lot of other nations around the world really need to do more to clean up the planet. But I think there's better ways to go about it. Like maybe I think Pat Cummins was really pushing it, saying, I'm not going to appear in ads and that, but I think he could have gone about it in a better way. Do I think Alinta Energy can do more to become more green, invest more in solar, wind, and other renewable energies? Yes, of course. This is what I was just saying. Every energy company can do more, as well as the Australian government. But I think Pat Cummins could have more used his position to encourage that. Say, you guys need to do more, and push it more, and say, why don't you invest more? And then if they don't, then potentially go a different direction. Whether he did that in private, who really knows? Um, but I think he could have. I think it would have been better if he did it. Like, obviously, he needs to tread a fine line with that because with that kind of sponsorship, they could just easily just go, well, screw you. We don't tell you how to run your business. Don't tell us how to run ours. And terminated the contract anyway. But I still think that would have been a better way to do it rather than the way he did it. Because just simply saying, cut the sponsor. Well, they're in the same position as it is anyway. So, what good has it done? It's just like all it's done is just cost Cricket Australia $40 million. And, that means he's probably going to have to take a pay cut, and he's probably going to go, well, that's a, consequence that I'm willing to take. But it's just like, well, yeah, it's easy enough to say that when you're on bloody $2 or $3 million a year, when your Cricket Australia contract is $2 or $3 million a year, and you're going to go down to, say, 1.8 or whatever, it's really easy to say that when you're earning that kind of freaking money. But it ain't bloody easy when, you're a state player that's, having to take, often has to work a day job as well as working, playing cricket, where you're often taking time off and risking your job, because a lot of employees wouldn't allow players to play, state cricket as well as, because, yes, they're obviously professional cricketers at state level and who their only job is state cricket, but there's plenty of them that are also got jobs outside, and they're not earning bloody at 1.8. They're probably only earning $100,000 a year, and it's just like, $100,000 still a good salary, but they could quite easily lose that job, and then they could lose their other, and when they're risking their job day in regularly playing state cricket, so I think that money also can go into grassroots as well as a female game. So I think he could have, Pat Cummins could have gone about it in a better way. And if he did go around and say, look, you need to be more, investing more into renewables, and then they turn around and said, screw you, well, you're in the same position. So I think he could have handled it a lot better than what he did. Because, quite frankly, all he's done is, because if he did it that way, saying like, look, we want to be more green, it makes Alinta Energy look like the bad guy, whereas the way he's done it, it looks like he's just virtual signaling, and he's just really tried to make Alinta Energy look like the bad guy, when really he's kind of come out looking like the bad guy in a way. So he more looks like a woke virtual signaling kind of wanker. And obviously that wasn't his intention. Like, everyone knows that wouldn't be what his intention was, but that's the way it's come across. And yeah, so he needs to be a little bit more careful going about it, probably in future. Probably have more discussions with Cricket Australia, have more discussions with sponsors, and the way to go about it, because it's just turned into a massive bloody shit fight, and it doesn't look good. The other one that's obviously been in the media is netball, Netball Australia with Gina Reinhart. And this one was really freaking stupid. And there's no really other way to put it. Like, Cricket Australia can probably take the hit with the $40 million in the short term, simply because, they had the tour. They had India and they had the Ashes the last 2 summers, so they've probably got quite a bit of money, so they can probably take that $40 million hit. Whereas Netball Australia, they can't take this $15 million hit. They're really struggling at the moment to pay the players. Like, the players keep saying, "Oh, we want a pay rise, we want a pay rise, we want a pay rise." But the thing is, Netball's got no money, and the players come out and do this, like, saying, "Oh, we want Gina Reinhart to apologise for what her father said." It's just like, for fuck's sake. Like, honestly, she didn't... Yeah, like, everyone knows what her father said about the Aboriginals was wrong. Like, saying that he wants to sterilise... I think it was... If I have this right, I think he said something along the lines of he wanted to sterilise all Aboriginals and breed them out. He said... From memory, I think he said something along those lines. Like, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what he said. And it's just like, yeah, that's real Hitler shit. Like, it is. It's real, what the Nazis did in World War II, but with the Jews and the Gypsies and the rest of them. But, blaming her for that is just, it's like, or do you blame all British people for, or all Spanish people for, going around the Americas, through Africa, here in Australia, New Zealand, for, probably not so much New Zealand, but, they're going around murdering all of the indigenous communities in those countries. Like, no, you don't. Like, and trust me, there's a lot of people that were responsible for that. Like, do you blame the current monarch of Belgium for what Leopold II did in the Congo? That when on his orders they killed, 2 million bloody people in the Congo? Or do you blame all Germans for, like, no. And that's basically what netballers, these netballers are doing. They're blaming Gina Reinhart for something that she didn't do. She had no control over. Like, you can't blame someone for what... You can't blame the whole family for what one person did. Everyone has a family member, whether it's a current family member or a family member in the past, that's been a complete dipshit who has said or done something that is horrendous. Everyone. There's not one person on this planet that hasn't got a relative that's done that. And if someone says, I haven't got... Bullshit. I'll just say to them, bullshit. Like, you may probably just don't know about it. It may have happened 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. But, sure, it's not someone that you knew. Like, it might be a great-grandparent or a great-great-grandparent. And you might not even know that they did it. But the fact of the matter is, they still did it. And to blame her is ridiculous. And saying, we also don't agree with mining. Okay, do you have a phone? Do you take a plane? Do you drive a car? Do you get on a bus? Do you take any kind of public transport? Where do you think they get these materials from? Like, do you think they just, do you think if Samsung or Apple or Google or whoever your phone is with, do you think they just get the materials out, they pull it out of their backside and just all of a sudden there's a phone? Like, no. They get it from mining companies. They buy the material. Well, obviously there's a few, links in the, along the way. Like, they don't get, it doesn't get dug out of the ground and straight onto a factory floor, an Apple or a Samsung or whatever factory floor. But, there's obviously a few steps along the way. But the materials come from mining. Like, or your car, your phone, your earphones, your, everything, but, a good percentage of the stuff that we use every single day, your computers, as well. Every, virtually all these components come from, mining. So, to say, oh, we're against mining, like, really? Like, if you're really against mining, really basically what you're saying is that we should go back to, medieval times, where, let's wind back the clock, 300 years, 400 years before the Industrial Revolution, and, let's not have any of this stuff, because, it's, I don't agree with it. Let's have, candlelight, at night. We can't use electricity because, like I was saying with Alinta Energy, majority of it's by coal. And again, where do you get coal? From mining. And again, and even a lot of the materials for renewables, like, solar panels, wind turbines, where do they get the materials to make those? Again, from mining. These people are just virtual signaling and not really realizing, going, oh shit, I actually benefit virtually every single bit of my daily, you can't walk around in 2022 and not rely on something, yes, it might not necessarily be from Gina Reinhardt's mining company, but I can guarantee you every single thing, you cannot go a day in society without, using something that's from a mining company. You might go 1 or 2 days where you go out camping in the middle of buttfuck nowhere, but for the most part, to survive in 2022, you're going to be relying on bloody something from a mining company. Even your house, you probably have, or your unit, you got steel beams. It's just I just don't understand where the anger from them is coming from. Because it's just everything you do is touched by it. And yes, I can get why you're pissed, especially if you're Aboriginal, why you would be pissed off with what Gina Reinhardt's father said. Because, quite frankly, it was a disgraceful comment what he said. But you can't blame her for what he said. If she comes out and says, yeah, I fully support what he said, and I agree with what he said, then damn straight, yeah, bloody give it to her. She should be absolutely freaking slammed. Company should bloody terminate contracts with her, 100%. I'll be like, yeah, fair enough. And I'd say, Netball Australia, you're 100% right in tearing up that contract. Where you're right in tearing up that $15 million contract. But, as much as it's going to, it's going to cost you, obviously, in the long run. But, I think players should really, get a little bit, they need to start thinking things through, because, virtually all their, salaries, a good percentage of it comes, either directly or indirectly come from, sponsorship or some kind of advertising, right? There's only a very, very small, people go, oh, ticket sales. Ticket sales are only, I reckon, it's I don't know the figures of what, ticket sales make up in any sport, especially in netball, but I can tell you, it's only, I wouldn't even say it's 50%, but even 50%, these players are whinging about what they're getting paid now. Would they want to take a 50% pay cut? No, they'll get the shits with it. And and the reason why I say majority of their money is either directly or indirectly come from sponsorship is because look, obviously there's a direct sponsorship. So for example, in this case, it was Gina Reinhart's company is sponsoring the netball, and they were complaining about the money and what the father said and that. So there's obviously that's obviously direct. Like with company A sponsors company B to get something out there, right? Whether it be something on the jersey, or whether it's for example, in the NRL, what they have is the Telstra Premiership. So the competition is named the Telstra Premiership. So obviously, Telstra's paying for naming rights of the competition. Or you got I think it's Harvey Norman now that's sponsoring the Origin. It's the Harvey not it's the State of Origin presented by and that. So there's obviously that, and everyone knows that. But then you have the other side of that. So you have for example, the TV rights, and people go TV rights. That's not sponsorship. That's TV rights. That's completely different. Well, where does the TV get their money from? They put the sport on, whatever the sport is, whether in this case it's netball or it's cricket, or like I mentioned at the start of the podcast, the NRL, whatever the sport may be. You got the sport, and then they have advertising. Yes, technically it's advertising, not sponsorship, but potato, right? Sorry, tomato. I should say, but yeah, it's a similar kind of thing. That's the indirect, and the more money, and then you got so obviously, and then the other thing with the TV is you've also got the sponsors. You got sponsors around. You got the how you have all the fences around the stadium or the court or whatever it may be with the whatever sport you're playing, whatever you would like to basically the playing arena. All those sponsorships around. You ever notice that for example, a classic example is just because I noticed it with the tennis, and when my dad watches the tennis, you ever notice you always have either Rolex or Fly Emirates? So obviously, if nearly every major, it's either Rolex or Emirates or both around the playing arena. And obviously, if you got all the people in the crowd that's looking at that, you obviously, it's stuck in my mind. You guys, everyone's probably going, oh, actually, now that you mentioned it, yeah, I have noticed that when I watch tennis. Obviously the TV helps with that. More people watching on TV, the more you can get in sponsorship. So, the TV actually, plays a role in that. And, so that's where, there's where sponsorship comes in, and that's where a good majority of their, comes in. And I think it's better for players just to stay in their lane, because, obviously they have a voice, and, they have a right to say something like, yes, I agree with it, no, I don't. And I'm not saying that they, and look, trust me, I don't think that, players have a right to say, we agree with something or not. but you can't just come out and just say we're purely against it because of, you know, we don't like what someone's father said back 40 years ago, who's now dead. You know, the bloke's been dead for what? How many years? Like, and it's just like, you know, call it for. I think it'd be better off for the players that should bring it to light, saying, "Look, we don't appreciate." You know, if you have the discussion, you know, have the discussions with Reinhardt and say, "What's your opinion on what he said?" If she says, "I agree with it," then I would say, "Yeah, fuck them off." I would say, "Get lost. We don't want anything to do with you." And this is what I was saying at the very start when I was talking about the Cronulla Sharks. You have to have a company that has the ethical. Like, obviously, Cronulla Sharks, like I said at the start, Ashley Madison didn't align with their values. The players probably would have come out and said, we don't want them associated with us. Some of them might have, I don't know. But, you know, they would have just came, and you probably would have seen the NRL if the Cronulla Sharks did accept that, you probably would have seen the NRL come in and say, you know, this is about how you're going. Like, you know, I don't think we can't really approve this as, and I think there would have been a lot of people coming in and saying, this is about how you're going. You know, you more than likely would have had TV and other broadcasters come in and say, like, look, you can't have this. So that's probably why, you know, we can't be seen advertising this. And so that's where it comes in. But when you get the sponsorship, like, and I know I've harped on a lot with the negative side with this, but there's also a lot of positive sides to it as well. Like, because you can, because this is one of the main things that sponsorships do, is they promote, like, it's a kind of advertising. Like, you are putting your name out there to promote your product, but you also can use it as a way to teach them about how people learn about your product. Like, for example, again, going back to an earlier comment I made in the podcast, Samsung dropped the Roosters and back in 2009, as at the end of the 2009 season, that's when Steggles came in, this chicken company came in and said, we'll start sponsoring you to the Roosters. They said, we'll sponsor you. And one of the things that they did is bring in the Steggles charity nest. I didn't realise Steggles had a charity nest. And I think they deal with childhood cancer, I believe. I'm not 100% sure. Probably should have looked that up before, but I mentioned it. But yeah, they, you know, now a lot of people, especially Roosters fans, know that Steggles has a charity nest. And they have a charity, which, you know, I would have never known. I can guarantee a lot of other people wouldn't have known. A lot of Roosters fans wouldn't have known that Steggles has a charity. They have a charity wing. And that's one thing that's like sponsorships. And, you know, obviously both parties has benefited greatly from the partnership. You know, the Roosters are getting a lot of money from Steggles. They, you know, they get they have a front of jersey sponsor. They, you know, they're making, so that, you know, to get that on this jersey, they're probably getting several $100,000 a year from them. And, you know, Steggles is getting the benefit of that their charity is getting, because like for example, they have actually in saying that I haven't actually seen it at a game for a number of years now, but I remember when the games used to be at the old SFS before it got pulled down. What they used to regularly do is have a 50-50 draw. So every home game, they would have basically they would have a prize pool. They said you can buy tickets. I think it was like between $5 and $100 or something, whatever it was. Can't remember the exact amount, but you get, obviously you have more tickets you buy, I think it's like the more you pay, the more tickets. I think it was like 2 for $5, and you get like 6 for 10 or whatever it was, and then you get like, right up. I think it was like up to $50, you get 50 tickets, whatever. So, and at halftime, they would go through they'd get their like as gates open, have a lot of people walking around with this, and they would stop people and say, "Do you want to buy a ticket?" And they go into the bays during the half and say, like, "Anyone want to buy a ticket?" And then at halftime, they would draw someone out randomly, and whatever the prize pool is. So for that game, they made $5,000. $2,500 would go to the charity, and then $2,500 would go to a winner, someone that purchased tickets. So, that's one way they really got involved, and so that was a mutual benefit. There's a mutual benefit there, and that's what the positive that sponsorship can do. Like, and I remember, like, I know in a lot of cases that sponsorship doesn't always get a return on investment, but I can guarantee you, Steggles is one of the few that few in Australia. Because I remember when I did my sports management sub major, that sponsorship's not always great here in Australia. A lot of companies don't get that like lose money on sponsorships, but they just like the prestige of it. They get tickets to games, they sit with the owners, they get to meet the players and all that. So if you're a big super fan, that's a big thing for you. But Steggles has been. That's why I think sponsors could learn from something like that, where you do something that really you become part of the club, right? Like, obviously, Samsung can't be going to games and selling $1,500, $2,000 phones at games, but maybe what they could have done is set up have some kind of stall at games when this is it, provided this is back probably before they had the wireless headphones, but like Bluetooth headphones, but like if they say were still sponsoring, if someone was that someone like Samsung or someone like Apple or whoever was sponsoring, or even if someone that is like JBL or something, funnily enough, I'm using JBL headphones. This was just why it came to mind then. But if they sponsor something, they could have a partnership with whoever they're sponsoring and say, "Oh, we want to set up a stall at pre and post game, and potentially." Sell headphones before games or whatever, and they might be able to sell a few $100 worth of headphones. They might sell, they might not sell a lot, but they might sell 15 headphones that they may have not sold otherwise. Like, people go, "Oh, that could be interesting." They go, "Oh, I've download the app, listen to commentary, and I can listen to on my new headphones." Like, something like, they can use that as an advertising ploy. And that could really work for them, and that could be better, that's where it could be mutual beneficial, because like I said, they download the NRL app, the NRL gets the benefit of, however much the app is. I think it's like $3 a month. I think I'm not sure how much it is, but I know there is a cost there. So the NRL gets money, so they're happy. JBL's happy, or whoever it may be, because they're selling headphones. The sponsor, the team's happy because they're making money. And yeah, so it's all around, like, there's no losers in that case. And that's where I think, like, Steggles, like, companies can learn from companies like Steggles, and where they can really become integral in the company, and they can really grow, companies can really grow from that. And, it could be interesting to see where sponsorship goes from here, because I think, I know there's that, obviously there's that extra cost where, you have to send people out there, which, you had to pay them, $20 or $30 an hour, depending on what day of the week it is, and penalty rates and all that. But, you have to be proactive. And if, and even if you have, a draw, like a draw where they win stuff, with some of your products, something like that, where you are, becoming more intertwined with the club. And I think that's where sponsorships can really, that's probably why they haven't. Look, I'm not a marketing person, so I think a marketing person would be better one to say this, but I think they just are not intertwined enough with the sponsorship. I think they're just saying, oh yeah, whack our name on a jersey. Like, I think you need to do a little bit more than that, because, like, for example, who has ever, like, this is more directed at, again, using the Roosters as an example. If you see Steggles on the jersey, how many people do you reckon they'll go? How many Roosters fans do you reckon? Oh, I'm going to go out and buy Steggles chicken now. Like, yes, there's obviously a percentage that will, but the majority of people won't. But if you see that there's a Steggles stand right in front of you, and as you're walking out, say it's the game finishes, you're on a 5 o'clock Saturday, and they're selling hot chicken at the end of the game, and you go, oh yeah, that's easy. They're selling a chicken meal at the end of the game, and you go, oh, that might be a good idea. I'm just going to pick up a feed. I'm going to pick up that feed from Steggles there. Like, you're more likely to, buy that. Like, and that's where they're going to be, you might get 500 people bloody buy something from you on the way out of the stadium. Whereas, you might only get 10 people to buy Steggles chicken otherwise. So, this is where, teams need to think about it, where, sponsors need to think a bit how they can be more proactive in getting involved. And, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, whether you think that players should get involved, in the sponsorship, and if you do, how they should get involved, because I think that's the best thing that they can do. Personally, I think players do deserve a voice, but I think for the most part, it should be left to the corporates to decide whether yes or no we should to go with a sponsor. And how do you think that sponsors, do you think sponsors can get more involved in their teams, or do you think that if they do, it would be a bit in your face and a bit more turn you off, because that's the other side of the coin. It could pretend there's too much in your face. and it could actually turn you off the product. So I'll be interested to hear what your thoughts are, because it is an interesting case. It is a forever changing field, because obviously, climates change, thoughts change on throughout the years. So it's and obviously, so sponsorships revolving doors. So forever changing field. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it. So, until next time, have a good one.